sort of view. Clearly that's not Ray's view. He doesn't think that all this conscious stuff is just an epiphenomenal excrescence dangling off the real business of brain processes. He thinks that somehow it's going to make a real difference. But it's hard to see how it can. From Ray's view, all this extra conscious stuff, reasoning, intentional memories, feelings and so on, and presumably they make a difference to what I do, to my behavior, to my activity. But on Ray's view it's hard to see how they can, because think of my behavior from physiological, physical point of view. I mean, why is my arm moving like this? Well, it's because the muscles in my arms are contracting. And why is that? Well, because certain chemical messages are coming down my arm. Why did that happen? Well, because certain electrochemical activity in my motor cortex. Why did that happen? Well, because there is certain activity in my prefrontal cortex, which consists in my thinking about what should I use for a philosophical example, and then I move my arm, and so on. You can trace the chain of causation back from the arm moving up through to the neurophysiology in the brain, through to the causes of that. And no scientist studying this process would expect to find some gap there where you can't explain what's happening at a physical level in terms of prior physical activity. Philosophers now call this fact the causal closure of the physical. Given any physical effect, you can find a full physical cause for it. You don't need to go outside the realm of the physical to explain why certain physical processes occur. So in particular here, you don't need to go outside the realm of the physical to explain why behavior is as it is. But if that's right, then you can see why Ray's view seems to force you to epiphenomenalism. We've already got enough causes for all my behavior, and now we've got this extra stuff dangling off the top. If you want to respect the causal closure of the physical, and have, as of course we do, conscious mental life making a difference, you'd better identify the conscious mental life with the brain processes. Now you get my decisions and my feelings affecting my behavior, because they're just one and the same in the brain processes, which of course do affect my behavior. But if you don't identify the conscious processes with the brain processes, then you seem fated to have them dangling off the top, not making any difference. I mean, of course, the alternative is to deny the causal closure of the physical. And that's perfectly coherent and until pretty standard view. I mean, it's Descartes' view. He's an interactionist dualist. The mind comes down, pineal gland makes it sound a bit odd and archaic. But effectively, that view was the standard view among serious, sober scientists until about 100 years ago, 50 years ago, not very long. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Karl Popper and Sir John Eccles. They were both of the view that somewhere in the brain you could find places where bits of matter were being accelerated by forces other than the standard physical forces. But I take it that's now a cranky view. I mean, I don't know. No names, no fact. But so why is it a cranky view? And I said it wasn't 100 years ago, maybe not even 50 years ago, because of recent scientific discoveries. I think crucial here is Hodgkin and Huxley's explanation of the propagation of action potentials down neurons. It's just a chemical, electrical process. And once people saw that, they felt, well, that's how it all works. There's no room for an extra to make a difference. Since the conscious structure it must just be one and the same as in the processes. Now, Ray didn't talk about this, and I don't know which way he wants to jump. I mean, it's a very odd dilemma for a dualist. You could go with Popper and Eccles and think that somewhere in the brain there's some funny bits of matter accelerating in ways that are inexplicable by standard physical science. But if you think that, you should go and tell the physicists down there pretty fast, because they can get a Nobel Prize quite easily by demonstrating an extra force. Or, and this is what most philosophers who are on Ray's side in respect respect the causal closure of the physical and say, well, since dualism must be true, so crazy to suppose physicalism is true, we're going to have to be epiphenomenalists. But as I say, it's a very nasty choice. I'm glad it's not. I'm glad it's not mine. So I think the way out of this argument is just to be a physical. Okay, so let me say a little bit about explaining consciousness. So it's pretty standard. I mean, Ray ended up, how are we going to explain big issue? But it's pretty standard for people on my side of the fence also to think that there's some big issue here about consciousness, vast mystery of science. We've got to explain it. Maybe in some while we'll come up with some nice theory that explains it all. Maybe it's a long way off. Maybe it's Colin McGinn's view. It's too hard for our tiny brains. We're never going to explain it. Some big unexplained thing. I think that's all a mistake. I don't think there's any big unexplained thing at all. I don't think there's any big issue. It's just a matter of finding out which brain processes are one and the same with which conscious activity, which conscious experiences. So there's the experience as of seeing something red, and we've got to figure out this by heart. Is it V4, is it V8? And we do various experiments, dissociate people who've got this bit of the brain working, do they still have colour experiences? And once you've got it down to the right area, you'll have to figure out which ones are the red experiences, which ones are the green. But once you've done that, here we are. It's this brain process, and whenever it goes on something to experience, whenever something to experience, we'll have discovered what the nature, the physical nature of seeing something as red is, and that will be the end of it. At that point, nothing left to explain. We just have found out what seeing something as red is. Just as we found out that water is H2O, or salt is sodium chloride. Now, is there something to explain about why H2O is water? I think not. In a minute, I'll say a little bit about why it does seem to us that there's something. I mean, I agree that many people, it's very natural thought that there's some mystery here to explain. But I think that's a confusion. I'll say a bit about how the confusion arises. But let me just say a little bit more about why I think that it's just a matter of finding out which brain processes, which conscious states are identical with, and once you've discovered that, there's nothing left to explain. The real reason why there'd be nothing left to explain, once you've discovered that, is that identities, the fact that one thing is the same as another, don't need explaining. There's no need to explain why water is H2O, or why water is just there it is. If there's just one thing here, and you're explaining, what we're trying to explain, why it is itself, it doesn't really make sense. Let me give you a little made up by philosophical colleague Ned Block to illustrate the point. He says, imagine there's two groups of historians. One of them is the Samuel Clements Society, and they study Samuel Clements, the significant riverboat pilot on Mississippi, and they know a lot about the boats he worked on and so on. And here there's this other bunch, and they study Mark Twain and Sawyer and so on. And they don't know that. So far, they think they're two separate people. And then one night at the American Historical Association, the bar at the top floor of Sheraton, they happen to be sitting at adjacent tables, and one of them is looking over the shoulder. And the penny drops, and then they say, same person. Amazing. And they're all very excited. And at that point, there are various questions they might ask. They might want to have it explained. Why did this guy have two names? Why did it take us so long to find out it was the same person? But what they won't ask is, why was Mark Twain Samuel Clements? Why was Mark Twain Samuel? It doesn't make sense. I mean, if there's one person there, then there's no real question about why is he himself, and what else could he do? if we really discover that seeing something as red is one and the same as a certain activity, certain brain process in the act, then we should just accept that's what it is. There's nothing further to explain. Okay, last point. There's nothing here to explain might sound unconvincing. Surely you want to know why a certain activity in the brain is felt as seeing something as red, as opposed to why is it felt like that? Why does it feel like seeing something as green? Why is it felt like anything at all? Why isn't it felt as hearing a high-pitched sound? Why does this brain process go with that conscious feeling? But I think the only reason we keep asking that question is because we haven't fully taken the materialist view to heart. I said earlier on, look, it's a bit counterintuitive, this view that there's just one thing here. It's very hard for us to stop thinking that the brain process is one thing and the conscious feeling is something else. But the question you might want to ask about, and I've got lots to say about it, but I won't say it now, is why should it be that dualism is so intuitively compelling and materialism so very hard to do? That's an interesting question, and there's lots of theories. Why are we intuitive dualists? But I just want to leave you with the thought that it's the fact that we're intuitive dualists that makes us feel there's something to explain. Of course, if you're a dualist, then you think there's the brain process, and in addition, there's this extra stuff, the feeling of seeing something with the feeling. And then you might think, if you think there's two things, be very puzzled about how come these brain processes give rise to these feelings rather than those feelings, or no feelings at all. And of course, for dualists, there's a lot to explain. And I think our feeling that there's something to explain here is only a feeling we keep on having because we can't rid ourselves of dualist thinking. Okay, that is why populism thinking? I haven't got time to go into that. Let me just leave you with what I hope will be a little demonstration that we can't rid ourselves of dualism. We can't is too strong. Normally don't. So think about how the question of explaining consciousness is normally put. Somebody asks you, we really want to understand why certain brain processes give rise to consciousness, or cause consciousness, or yield consciousness, or generate consciousness. You'll find lots of people who would be horrified to find out that they're closet dualists. Now we're targeted materialist scientists asking just that question: why do certain brain processes give rise to consciousness? We want to understand which brain processes give rise to consciousness. That's dualist talk. If you really thought that there was just one thing there, you wouldn't ask why did the one thing give rise to the other. Look. Smoke, fire gives rise to smoke, generates smoke, causes smoke. But H2O doesn't give rise to water. Sodium chloride doesn't give rise to salt or generate salt. It just is salt. So if you could really get your head around materialism and get rid of dualist thinking, you wouldn't want to go on asking why do brain processes generate feelings. They just are the feelings in just the same way as H2O is water, and there's no further question about why the one thing is itself.
There are many things I disagree with, but I think the heart of his misunderstanding lies in the defense of divine brain identity theory. This is particularly your activities say corresponds to the experience of yellow.
Corresponds, no,
Is identical with it.
Yeah.
And if something